start with the proposals.
Because I think that's the first step.
Yeah,
in this
I
thing,
mean,
right?
I think that's getting so big and
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
wants to club it with a travel. So,
Yeah.
what do you recommend? What do you say? How should one even start thinking and planning it?
An element of surprise is important in a proposal. I mean, they know.
Very often they know, but
They know, but
they have to get
yeah,
that
they know,
surprise
but
factor.
they still want that surprise factor.
Yeah.
So it's really important to plan around how you
Yeah.
can at least create some element of that. They're going to know at some point, but at least create the wow element, create the surprise element. So there's different ways to do that. You can like surprise her with the tickets. You can, we've had clients who've done like a trip with the family and then shown up on that trip just to surprise them and, you know, create an experience that way. So that's one point about it. It's very important to have their friends and family on board because you are going to be lying to your to-be spouse, so you need someone to back that up.
Sure.
So that's very important. And I think it's important to also keep it logistically feasible. Everyone has grand dreams of a very fancy proposal in a faraway land, but
Yeah.
in Indian society, traveling pre-marriage for an extended period of time is often not acceptable.
Do you think that's yet the mindset?
It depends from family to family, also the type of marriage it is. In love marriage, where people have traveled before, it might be more acceptable. In arranged marriage,
Yeah.
there's typically a less leeway. So usually we see a lot of proposals being for closer, this thing place you can go and come back in 3 or 4 days. You know, domestic holidays. You've got a lot of them happening at the palaces around India because obviously you can make a girl feel like a princess then, right? So
Yeah, actually, I've realized that people veer a lot more towards international when it
Yeah.
comes to proposals.
Yeah.
But there's also so much that can be done within India.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I know of a couple who did their proposal in Leh. What's the trend? Do they foot the bill themselves? Because my observation is that at least the families I worked with, they take care of the food, the accommodation, and typically their friends pay only for the tickets. What's your take? What have you observed?
I mean, I think it really depends from trip to trip, from couple to couple. But I think in general, bachelors and bachelorette trips is where most people pay for themselves.
Okay.
And the bride or groom, they might cover a couple of experiences on the trip. They might do like one night. Sometimes the friends want to do one night for the bachelor. So it really depends from group to group how it goes. I think one thing that's really important is that the budget of a bachelor or bachelorette trip should cater to everyone in the group.
Yeah.
It should not get so expensive that people feel left out or people feel pressure
True.
with that. So, you know, and when picking a destination, that's often important to keep in mind, to pick a destination that's accessible and budget friendly for everyone.
So what are the main criterias that people go through when they're selecting a destination? Like you said, one is budget,
Yeah,
two is accessibility,
correct.
and then what else? Weather.
I think since it's a bachelorette nightlife. I mean,
Nightlife,
people
yeah.
want good nightlife on a bachelor and bachelorette trip. But we're seeing more and more people who want a mix of everything. Like they want good nightlife, they want good food, they want experiences, they want natural beauty. So they want a bit of everything. But definitely on a bachelorette trip, nightlife is one of the main deciding factors.
And which are the most popular destinations? Let's talk about those now. We'll start with maybe East Europe.
For us, we find it to be a little bit more popular for bachelors than bachelorettes. So a couple of reasons why it's really popular. There's obviously great nightlife across Eastern Europe, whether you're looking at Prague. Budapest has the ruin pubs, which are actually made from ruins of like old buildings.
Oh, wow.
Very cool. Then you've got Poland. One reason it's very popular is not as expensive as Europe, but you still get that vibe of being in Europe. So it's great for a big group of friends where everyone might not
So
want to spend.
Budapest is Hungary, right?
Hungary,
Yeah.
correct. Hungary,
And then-
Czech Republic, Poland, even Austria to a certain extent. And of course, you've got great experiences throughout these places. Like in Prague, you can take you can do a cruise down the river. In Budapest, they've got hot springs. In some places, you can even drive tanks and do shooting ranges, which is a great activity for the boys. So you've got activities, you've got nightlife. So I think it covers everything, and it's fairly accessible from India. You do need a Schengen visa,
Okay.
But a lot of people have that these days, and it's becoming easier and easier to get one. And you have a variety of flights going there now. You have Lufthansa, you've got some destinations covered by Emirates and Etihad. And from some places, Delhi has direct flights as well.
But flights have become frightfully expensive, no, Keshav, now?
You have to know where to look.
Yeah.
So you book your tickets in advance, be a little bit flexible on the dates, be a little flexible on which city to get in and out of, and you can find a good deal. But in general, everything is more expensive now.
Yes. So for bachelorettes, what are the places that you highly recommend?
For bachelorettes, I think some things which are important. nightlife is important, but not as important as it is for bachelor trips. Girls also want like a variety of experiences. They want good food, they want good wine, and they want shopping.
And maybe spa.
And spa, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So, we get a lot. So, I think Paris, again, like I mentioned, works great for bachelorettes because you have everything out there. You've got fine dining, you've got great spas. Obviously, you have a ton of shopping. It's the retail capital of the world. And you can even do some great day trips from there. Like, you can go to Champagne, you can have like a day of treating yourself to all of the best champagnes of France, So, I think it works great for bachelorettes in that way. I think again in parts of Asia, like I think Vietnam has become very popular for bachelorette trips because you have a bit of beach, you have a bit of nightlife, you can go to the spa, you have like some sightseeing and experience options, you can take a yacht for the day. Yeah.
Now
exactly.
what exactly is buddy moons? First, let's talk about that.
Earlier, I think with the way society was earlier, the girls had their own friends and the guys had their friends, and they wanted to travel with their friends before a wedding. But now everything's a lot more mixed.
Yeah.
So like half of my friends are girls and half of my girlfriend's friends are going to be guys, and everyone wants to travel together. And I think another big part is that people want to actually travel with their significant other, right?
Yeah.
So they want to celebrate with their significant other and all of their friends, regardless of gender. So I think that's where the buddy moons come in, which is like a mixed trip of girls and boys both.
Is this a very Gen Z kind of a thing, or a maybe?
I think millennial.
Millennial.
I think it's a millennial thing because I think, the traditional gender rules don't really exist so much, anymore.
So buddy moons is the thing.
Yeah, and then with the buddy moon, obviously, we look at places which are more activity focused. We're going to have something for both the guys and the girls. There is nightlife, but there's activities. There's, that's why I think Marrakesh and Indonesia work great for a buddy moon because you have nightlife, but you have stuff like diving, you have snorkeling, you've got your hot air balloons and quad bikes and all of the activities to keep everyone.
I'll give you an example of how we do it, which is plan A and plan B.
Yes.
Which is, for me, plan B is very important.
Absolutely.
And it's not only one person who decides the plan B. Once you decide, then the entire team should know this is plan B.
Correct.
Because if plan A doesn't work, and plan A and plan B is specifically I'm talking about is the weather.
I think that's the only contingency in today's times everybody needs to really bear in mind.
If it's an outdoor or an indoor for that matter, weather plays a very, very important role.
True.
We have done multiple weddings over the past 20, 25 years, and we've always worked on plan B as we are working on plan A, which I'll give you a few examples. In fact, a few years back in the month of January, we all know who are from North India, that mid-January to mid-February, it rains.
It rains.
100% it rains, and it's not end of January or mid of February. It can rain but that is the 5 to 7 days.
Okay.
And we were doing a wedding in North India, not in Delhi, but one of the cities. And in October, when we were looking at the forecast, we informed our clients that, so you're doing a very big function outdoor, spending a lot of money. We should have a superstructure.
Okay.
Which will minimize the risk. It's always 99% chance that it won't rain, but there's a 1% chance it might rain, and vice versa. But having told them again and again, showing the forecast, they said no, it won't rain. We have direct connections with God. Rain gods, it won't rain. And we tried a lot. In fact, 10 days before the wedding, also we said, the forecast says it will rain. He said no, it won't. Unfortunately, one of the functions, it rained in the evening.
And we have to wash out.
And we had plan B, which was a ballroom, but ballroom was because it's a small town. It's a small ballroom. It was 1,000 guests. I can't accommodate more than 300 people. We had to use the ballroom, but we knew what the plan B was. But still, it's just about making one superstructure.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example of a wedding which we're doing a few years back again in Udaipur. It was in October, and if you've done a lot of weddings at all, July, August, September, October, it rains, in Udaipur. We had a wedding set up in Jagmandir.
Okay.
Jagmandir is divided into two parts again, the courtyard. We convinced the client that, forecast says it will rain. We have to minimize the risk. Now, there comes the trust factor. The client said, okay, Nitin, if you and your team have so much, done your research, let's put a marquee. And installing a marquee in Jagmandir is not easy.
True.
It's a cost plus board. It's a difficult
nightmare.
terrain altogether. But we had a marquee as a plan B. Fortunately, it never rained. The client said, Nitin, you have minimized my risk. If it would have rained, then the entire, it was a washout.
Yeah.
So there were both cases
Yeah.
of plan A and plan B.
No, I totally agree with you, because planning contingencies, which is especially weather, and nowadays with weather you just can't say anything, you know. I mean, a lot of hotels within the country were not built with keeping weddings as their prime business in mind, but weddings has become a very integral and important part of their business structure.
True.
And there is where the planners or design companies come in to make sure that, you know, each of these venues are, you know, thought of in a way that you can create something. Coming to destinations and the different kind of hotels that are coming, what's your experience? What's really catching up? What's happening? I know I have spoken of the Wed in India in a lot of our episodes, and though India is now a given that is going to be the popular destination, but international doesn't stop. So what's really the newer destinations in your view?
India, we start with India.
Yeah.
Rajasthan is the key.
Of course.
Earlier it was Jaipur.
Yes.
Then it was Jodhpur and Udaipur, and now it's Jaisalmer.
Yeah.
So these are the, you know, 3 J's, Jaisalmer, Jodhpur and Jaipur, which takes the cake as far as Rajasthan is concerned. Apart from that, Goa is another destination, because, you know, Indian weddings are not small. If it was only 100, 150 people, then the destination,
we have plenty of options.
A lot of options, because with 150 you mean, you know, we calculate, okay, 150 guests, which means we need only 40 to 50 vehicles. That's how we calculate logistics. We don't need a very big sound light equipment or a food equipment. You know, that's because if you're doing it in a hill station, they are another logistical nightmare. So bigger towns works better for Indian weddings. As far as international destinations are concerned, Europe, in any case, we're in Vienna, Italy, France, and now Portugal is coming up in a big way. They are giving us a lot of you know, focus on Indian weddings, and I think Portugal has seen 2 or 3 Indian weddings so far. But assuming in 2025 there will be more than a lot happening in Portugal. Not Lisbon, but yeah, Algarve or Porto or Madeira, these kind of destinations. Yeah. Because connectivity will also improve, and the government is, you know, working on few incentive programs for Indian wedding planners and to work on that. We'll hear that soon from them.
You're raising the bar for the
but it is important.
Industry.
But it is important, and I've seen the difference. I've seen the difference when we are sitting in office and working. You've seen our office. It's not a standard office. True. You have a courtyard, you know, you have a cart outside, you have a food area outside. We want each and every team member to be comfortable in their space. Now, coming back to your question, when you are sitting in any of the places, for example, in one of the hill stations, and the entire team is having a drink, and we're discussing about, you know, the ideas which come up, because it's much better. Because I always tell my team that don't stop thinking. Yeah. Maybe it's a stupid thought, but express it. Whether it is workable or not workable, that time will tell. Yeah. We have, you know, our seniors, you know, in our company we have 4 partners. Ashim is there, who takes care of the production. Savita is also there. Shweta takes care of the design part, and I just assist all 3 of them in making sure that the wedding square, you know, does a good job. But when we all are there in that small hotel where, you know, we can see the sunrise and sunset, we the clear skies, multiple stars in the night, the ideas are, it's not about Pinterest. Then the ideas are, you know, you sketch it out there and then.
That's quite an interesting thing.
There and then.
That you make that time and you'll really step out.
We try to. Yeah. We want to do it for most of the weddings, but considering the time constraint, we do it for, I think, 1 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah, they want to do it for all the weddings. But
I'm sure now that you offered, like, chalo, let's go for each of these. Sandeep, you've been a part of the biggest wedding that has been happening in the country, and I don't want to really dwell into it much or talk much about it because people are already seeing it so much all over. Yeah. But the only interesting thing that I really need to talk is a collaboration that you did with
Jayashree Burman on that beautiful lehenga.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot miss talking about that because it looked like a piece of art.
It was a piece of art, yeah.
It is
was
a piece of art.
yeah.
And how did this collaboration come into place? Like, do stylists play a big role, or is it that you just decide to collaborate with an artist?
We decided we wanted to do something different for Radhika.
Yeah.
And Riya said, Sandeep, why don't we do something with painting or something like that?
Yeah.
So we said, yeah, why not? And let's get somebody like, an artist who does these celestial figures, who's
Yeah.
more tuned into that.
Yeah.
And Jayashree was the perfect choice.
Yeah.
And she was very cooperative and she was wonderful. And it was a very smooth ride with her, I must say honestly.
Let's talk a little bit about the menswear.
Yes.
Can't miss them out, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big section also, and today things are changing drastically there. Earlier
Yeah.
they used to wear the very simple
Off-white,
sherwanis or off-white, but
Always.
today there's embroidery happening, jewelry happening.
So we're actually in this wonderful age where men have evolved hugely.
Yeah.
Earlier you'd have a man and a girl would say, no, he can't dress up. Actually,
Yeah.
even the brides are very restrictive
Yeah.
about, I don't want my groom to be overdressed.
Overly dressed, yeah.
You know what I mean? But today the men are saying, I want to own my own space.
Yeah.
If you're a bride, I want importance also.
Yeah.
We just did a wedding recently. It was shocking. It was a very funny incident. He actually went to the filming company who were filming the Neha was filming the wedding.
Yeah.
And the groom went to her and said, listen, I need importance for myself.
Oh,
I'm feeling a bit left out. Everything's happening around the bride. But what about me? So she's okay, don't worry.
his entry, his walk.
Yeah. So he actually told Leera and me that, what about my entry? So then we organized cold pyros.
How lovely.
We organized the whole thing because he wanted an entry.
Yeah.
So men have come a long way.
True.
Men and girls and men and brides and grooms are competing now.
Yeah, yeah. Competing and
competing. Men are wearing many emeralds. Women are wearing whatever jewelry they wear. But nobody's behind. There are very few grooms who just want to be subtle and want to say, okay, I want to be a very quiet groom.
Yeah.
And also now again introduced by the famous stylist is this picture must be perfect. If you're wearing pastel, he must wear pastel, your mother should wear pastel, your father should wear this. It's crazy.
What's your personal take on that?
I think it's a bit tiring.
Yeah.
And also it's not natural. Because
Yeah.
I think everybody should have their own character.
I
Okay.
so agree with you.
And when you look back at your picture, it may not seem perfect.
Yeah.
At least you have something to laugh about.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I think it's each one's wish to what they like, what their
Yeah.
color should be.
Also
Because if the bride decides, then the groom and the rest of the family has to go with that color.
Yeah. What is not being inclusive today
Yeah.
in this world that we're talking about diversity and inclusivity, what's not being inclusive today are brides and grooms. They leave their parents behind somewhere along the line. It's about their party, it's about their friends. But the point is, it's the parents' occasion as much as it's the bride and the groom's occasion.
There's something so interesting, Sandeep. Whenever I meet the couple, I first thing tell them is this wedding is not just about y'all, it's about 3 generations. If your grandparents
Exactly.
are yet alive, it's about them, it's about your parents and you. So the entire functions and the entire experience over the 3 days has to be inclusive. Very few get it. Very often it's shot down
Yeah.
when I say. But I exactly get what you're saying.
Yeah, because suddenly you'll see the dance floor is packed with the parents' generation
Yeah.
dancing, but the bride and groom generation is not even participating.
Yeah.
Which is so sad.
Very
because the
different
music is the
taste of
same music.
Yeah.
But the youngsters are standing near a bar that we will dance post 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, when our DJ comes and he'll
Yeah,
play
it's a bit
techno.
boring.
Yeah.
And I think a wedding is about everybody to enjoy. So that's the only one thing I must say to the younger generation, that just be inclusive, include your
Yeah,
parents.
yeah.
And like you said, it's about 3 generations. And everybody likes to party and you still dance to Staying Alive. Hello. Even your generation dances to Staying Alive.
True.
So does ours and so does the parents.
True.
So
True.
everybody still dances to the same English songs and
Yeah.
the same Hindi songs. We still dance to Mr. Bachchan's Jumma
Yeah,
Jumma.
yeah.
It came out in the 80s.
Yeah, and Chaiya Chaiya.
And Chaiya Chaiya. We all dance to it. So it's not that anything has changed.
Yeah.
It's just the mindset has changed that no,
True.
let's not be participating with everybody.
Yeah.
We'll do our version of Chaiya Chaiya.
Yeah.
Let our parents do their version of Chaiya Chaiya. But it would be just so much more happier if everybody did it together.
True, true. What's your biggest inspiration? Where do you get your inspiration from?
Our inspiration is anything and everything. When any city that Abu and me visit, we go to the antique market first.
Yeah.
So it could be an antique object, it could be something lying on the road, it could be a Ferris wheel, which is done beautifully. So you're looking for art and you're looking for creation in anything that you see. A woman on a field. And sometimes just a tree is
Yeah.
an inspiration,
Yeah.
you know. So we like to surround ourselves with beautiful things.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Always have. It's just been something that we were born with it.
Yeah.
Or our mothers were very good. They ran very good homes and very
Yeah.
tidy homes.
Yeah.
So we were always surrounded by, whether it was a flower, there were flowers were always there. Fresh flowers. There may be 2. Now there may be 200, but there may be 2. But at least they were there.
Yeah.
So we knew about the existence of all these.
You saw beauty in
we were
nature.
we were brought up with everything around us.
Yeah, yeah.
And were taught to appreciate it. And we learned to appreciate it. So that was one bit of it. Food is an inspiration.
True.
You know, going to those cow gullies and every city you go to, you also want to experiment with the cuisine there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's just about keeping your eyes and ears and your taste buds always going.
All your senses totally aware.
All your senses fully aware.
Yeah.
And not just look at a magazine and say, okay, let me just get inspired
Yeah,
by
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Or look at a book and say, let's get inspired.
Yeah.
And we have such a huge past history.
Yeah.
Even if we just go to the States and when we first did our bandhani and we left it in the crushed form, you know, earlier all the bandhanis were all ironed
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So when we first did our bandhani collection, I'm talking about way back in 88, we left it crushed. And that's how the bandhani remained crushed for years after that. Now people don't iron it.
Yeah.
necessarily.
Everybody wears crushed.
Everybody wears crushed bandhani.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it is such a huge legacy of
Yeah. Yeah.
things that we've done, you know, and but like in Gujarat, the widows wear a certain color.
Yeah.
That's inspiration.
Yeah.
Rajasthan wears a whole bunch of other colors.
True.
So the sadhus, my God.
Oh, yeah.
So wherever you go in India, it's an eye-opener for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
The south is so different from the north.
So do you travel often to get your inspirations? Do you get the time? I must ask.
We travel a lot, but now fortunately you have 150 channels
Yeah.
which are available to you,
True.
which are
True.
taking you all over the world.
Digitally.
But there's nothing like actually going to,
True.
like Jaipur is always an inspirational
Yeah,
city.
yeah.
Lucknow is always an inspiration, whether it's
Yeah.
architecture, whether it's beautiful things. You always discover things in
Yeah,
these cities, you know
yeah.
what I mean? And Hyderabad's got its own charm to it. I mean, India is full of charming places.
True.
And I think you don't have to look further, but I think you must travel.
Yeah.
If you're a creative person, travel is a very
It's the best
important-
way to get
Yeah.
your creativity at its optimum.
Yeah. Also, and stay at a decent hotel. Now there's
Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
boutique hotels, and there's so much has happened in the home space at the
Yeah.
moment.
The
I mean,
homestays.
The homestays and everything's getting finer.
I'm little old school. I feel there's always joy to see that longish video, sit and enjoy with your family. But this whole same day edit, reels, instant uploads, gratification, you know, all of it. What's your take on it? And two is, on site at a wedding, how do you manage this? Like today, it's changed your whole way of working, you know, how do you manage that?
So, you know, Aarti, when I, like you said, I also came in from a very traditional background. When I started off, I used to do those long videos 12 years back. And I think something that really worked for the brand was we very early on took on the entire same day edit, because we used to make clients wait for about 2 months, 2.5 months. In season time, it used to also go to 3 months. And I realized that there was a lot of anguish. There was not a lot of, like, you start the entire process on a very high note. You've loved what they loved, the first thing that comes to the house. But by the time they're at their 3rd month, we saw a lot of discomfort with families where they used to call us, follow up with us and say, kab aa raha hai photos, kab aa raha hai? And I think that entire change, I think when we did our first same day edit wedding was, I think, in 2014 and 15.
Oh, that
very, very early on. Yeah, very, very early on, where we used to go for a wedding where we say, like, it was my first Goa wedding for a very, very close friend of ours. And we did a 3-minute and a 5-minute short film for her at the reception.
Which you all showed,
which
maybe.
we showed. And that was our first gratification. And Aarti, from there, the applause is something which yet gives me a high.
Yeah.
The kind of comments that come out from a bride, groom, and they instantly seeing what they've just experienced in the afternoon or just 3 days back. We used to get the MC to say, hey, let's relive what's happened in the last 3 days. That feeling of yet seeing 300 people's eyes glued on that big LED screen, even in 2014 and 15 to right now, it's yet the highest joy. Like, there's nothing that adrenaline rush of, you know, sitting in the room, getting the edit on the table. At times we've never done checks. We barely make it to a check as well, right? Because you know the reception is going to start at, say, 9, 10 in the night. So I think that joy is phenomenal. I think the way it also changed because the world started to see our work.
Sure.
Until then, it was a family of 8 and 10 which saw our work. Suddenly your exposure is to 300 people, and suddenly from those 300 people, you knew your next 2 clients are coming from there. So that became an instant gratification. Clients carried that back home, wanted to upload it on YouTube back then, saying, ki, how do we share that with our friends and family who've not been able to make it to the wedding?
Let's deep dive into the editing process. You know, I mean, the same day edits, how it happens, and this long format, how it happens, and why does it take time?
See, to be a good same day editor, you got to believe in God first. Otherwise, it can't happen. It is a miracle that an edit is coming together. You know, by the time the fairas have ended, right? I have a legit footage of mine, which is now, you know, iPhone has that feature which converts a video into a GIF. It's become that. Picking up on one of the points that Megha said, you're literally rushing to the venue, hoping that the export that you just pressed happens. If that export doesn't happen, right, all your entire life, your hope comes down crashing. So there's a footage of me holding my laptop with the hard disk attached to it, and the laptop's always obviously open, and I'm walking to the venue, but I have to walk slowly because if I run, the hard disk might fall. Right, and this editor of mine, he took that piece, he recorded that piece, and he edited it with Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, Jaya Bachchan walking with
Thali in her hand.
Thali in her hand. So it's just literally that I'm praying for a miracle to happen. And the video edit, essentially, right, there's this objective part of it, which is to come back and, you know, I need to do this, I need to do that, cut, and my job will be done. But then there is a subjective part to it, which is that whole litmus test that we spoke about. And the edit actually begins with your first meeting with the couple. It doesn't begin in your studio.
It begins way before you've shot.
Way before you've shot, way before you've picked up your camera, your edit has already started. Because somewhere you have attuned the couple to who you are, somewhere you've
understood what they
want, right?
What their personalities are.
What their personality is. So it's not my portfolio being shot. We are very clear about this. We were obsessed with shooting portfolios in, I'm sure, early stages of our career. You just want to, you know, show off that you're this great photographer. But with time comes the understanding that it's someone's lifelong memories. So that understanding needs to be then translated into real work, which means you got to understand that someone to begin with. The rest of it, your guess is as good as mine, right? You throw it into the software, do your business, etc., etc.
Interestingly, you said you incorporate the personalities of the couple into this. Often I've seen, like I had this one wedding that I was handling, And the bride and the groom wanted something. They loved the edit that was done by the photo video team. It was a brilliant edit, you know. It was one of those edits that touches your heart. It was a same day edit because they were partying, they enjoyed, they had those moments captured really well, the friends were there. And then after that, when that edit came on the group, the internal family group, then the mother-in-law and both sides mother-in-laws like, oh, Dadiji's pictures not come, Chachi's pictures not come. You know, we need
You're
to,
forgetting Sarla
yeah,
Bua.
Sarla Bua's pictures not come. So, you know, we got to cover all of this. No, beta, acha nahi lagta hai. We have to do this. Now, I felt it just ruined it for the couple because they wanted it a certain way. But ye sab karte, it became the end product. So, how do you tackle a situation like that where you are very happy with the edit you feel, the couple is very happy, but of course the family is not happy. Now, how do you make sure one is in this whole story of capturing personalities? Do you get that answers from the family well in advance and you plan it that way, or over a period of time you realize, no, you got to do this as you go?
You got to identify the key stakeholders.
Yeah.
We literally call them stakeholders.
Yeah.
And it's very important in our team. It's a mandate.
Yeah.
The shoot director cannot show up at the shoot if he hasn't had a conversation with the stakeholders. The classic mistake is assuming that the bride and groom are the only stakeholders. Right? Oftentimes, the person who's writing the check also would like to believe he's the stakeholder. Fair, right?
Yeah.
So, and then that's what happens, right? Because for some parents, it's not just their child's wedding, it's a celebration of a lifetime for them. It's a milestone for them.
Yes.
Right? How can you exclude their wish list?
Absolutely.
And if I want a certain version for myself / the bride and the groom, there could be a difference between my version that I would want for to represent my company's work versus what the bride and groom want.
Yeah.
There's always the scope to do a director's cut.
Yeah.
Just politely go up to them, ask them, listen, we loved shooting your wedding. I hope you're happy with what we did. We just wanted a little version for ourselves to put it out on our portfolio. Can we take the liberty of doing that? And we've done that for 90% of the work that's out there on our social media is a director's.
The first thing that happens is what is going to be the color palette, because today with the flower color palette is what the consumers are also looking at their dress palette, right? So everything will change. Complements, right? So once the color palette is available, then you start going via availability of flowers from which part of the world during which time of the year. So for example, summers will have European flowers, right? Winters, if you need the same kind of flowers, you have to go to Australia or New Zealand. So our thought process of having linkages to make sure that the right variety is available in the right way. Then also what happens, depending on the quantity and the size of the wedding, it is super important that how much advance you plan. There are things like what day it would be cut, what day it would be transported, right? Flowers is, I think, 70-80% of the problem statement is solved via better transportation. It's a business of logistics. You have to get the flowers at the right time. You need flight spaces from various parts of the world to arrive. You need time for clearance. You need cold trucks to move. You need cold chain solutions to be at the site to keep them well so that they look the most pretty and the most beautiful on the day of the wedding.
Wow.
Right? So this planning process, I think, is something I look at. While Anuja is completely taking care of the whole design sensibility, elements, what props will look beautiful.
And all the painful planners and designers. Not to forget that. Everybody who doesn't understand this side at all. I mean, it's so interesting, Tarun. Like, I have known you all for so long. But when I hear this and I feel like, oh God, I thought I do a tough job of logistical nightmares of moving guests from here to there. But moving flowers from one place to another is a totally different gambit, you know. And just tell me one thing, in this whole process, like you said, it's seasonal. How do pricing vary? Like, where do we stand when we import flowers as India compared to other countries? Because you guys are an international chain, if you can throw some light on that.
So historically, Holland used to be the biggest exchange, right? It still continues to be the largest organized exchange. Flowers from all over the world are traded on the exchange. So it's like a stock market, right, floor, which now has gotten converted to screens. But there are people who are sitting on the screens and booking products which actually are grown in various parts of the world.
Oh.
So first is because of having an international chain, we have a very strong dealer network, which means people who are dedicatedly buying for us. Then comes secondary question. So first is availability. For example, a planner has made a design saying, I need 70,000 tulips and I need orange tulips. It needs to look like a tulip garden. Now the question is, arranging 70,000 tulips is more important. Secondary question that happens is price. But if you look at, India is one of the cheapest producers of flowers, but the problem is the variety. It's increasing, right? But we have historically seen maybe 10, 12 varieties. Interflora currently deals with 82 varieties of
82 varieties
of flowers.
Around the year.
Wow.
Okay, so that's you need to have that kind of availability of flowers.
Yeah.
Now in pricing, if you look at it, typically people think that large quantities should be cheaper, but it's the reverse. Whenever you need very large quantity, you're technically eroding away certain farms, right, fully for a particular wedding, because you need the same color, you need the same palette, and you need the look to not be like an ombre look. It should just be a flat look in a color, right? So larger quantities become more expensive. Smaller quantities are easy to solve for. Larger quantities have a better logistics because you are on volumetric weight, right? Smaller quantities will have higher logistics. So that's the dynamics you play with.
And our weddings are just getting larger and larger by the day.
And I think that's why it's very interesting, and probably I would like to tell that to the audience also, is that it's before they go and sell a design, it's important that they come and discuss back and say, hey, we might just be in a better position to recommend, do not sell tulips, sell something else, which is beneficial for the family, beneficial for them as well as the price. Like flowers, unfortunately, it's tagged as expensive, but it's there. If it is kind of well planned and well thought through, it can be done in all the budgets.
That's such a brilliant point you've made, Anuja, because I don't think any planner or designer would be calling you all prior. And if we make that as a practice of just checking with you of what is it that one could recommend at this time of the year, or which are the flowers that you recommend will go best with this design sensibility. I think the whole challenge of trying to value engineer and get the cost down later and sit through negotiations for hours and hours can be cut out to a large extent.
And in most of the weddings, including I think the front and the back end prep, it is like nothing less than, like any given wedding, I think it's about 200-300 people are always on site. The larger, I'm not talking about the larger weddings, like a regular wedding.
Anuja, in terms of the Indian flowers today, do you all also do a lot of work in the Indian flower space, or is it only imported and international flowers that one reaches out to you?
So in India, we are working very closely with about 200 to 300 growers, and these growers grow colors and varieties that we kind of need and want. So they specially work for us. So this is like, and it could be right from your cymbidiums to your hydrangeas to, like, in fact this year we are experimenting with a lot of peonies also growing in India. So definitely we work with growers to grow a lot of this in India, and a lot of Indian flowers also. So it is not just the cut flowers, but your Indian traditional work. So we have teams that do that.
So your supply chain exists in India too.
Yes. Yeah. So Indian flowers, let me first give you a funny story. So I went to a flower shop and asked them, I need a purple rose, right? And it's a particular kind of purple rose, right? That we sort of sought. The guy said, you need the interflora rose. Right? So a lot of work is going on, I would say on the Indian flowers. How I look at it is, there are domestic flowers, which are your roses, carnations, lilies, gerberas, right, which are already existing, hydrangeas, etc., which have started growing now in India. And then there is a lot of local flowers, right, which is the tube roses, right, and the marigold. We work on both sides. I think there is a lot of weaving work, etc., which happen on local flowers, right? I think we're building a lot of capability on that side. If you see any wedding, usually it will have about 40% imported and 60%, right, local flowers. But the local flowers or domestic flowers that we use are all very high grade export quality. And because of the retail business, we have access to a lot of those, and they are mostly pre-bought. So 85% of those are grown at growers end with head sizes of roses, etc., very well defined. Because eventually, if you get a high head size rose, even at 40% extra, it's covering 2x the area.
Correct.
So overall, the client is only getting benefited. So we tell them, don't start looking at per stem, start looking at what areas are getting covered.
Oh yeah, that's
that
a
is
very
super
interesting
important
perspective.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's been quite an insight, because I don't think people deep dive to that extent and understand. Now let's make it a little lighter, because I think my audience will say like we've gone so technical into this, so technical into this, but I think that was so important also because this is the Insider series. But now give us that one story that is super interesting, maybe of a celebrity wedding, of any other wedding that that you feel has been quite a memory for you guys, whether it was a challenge, whether it was a funny anecdote or whatever. But give us that one wedding story, please.
Too many.
Too many. I know. I always say I can write a book, but I think I'll choose to do that when I retire from this business.
Don't worry, we'll not let you. I think we've just been lucky to been able to work with a lot of celebrities.
Yes.
And it's a whole different experience when you work with celebrity families, and the entire experience of trying to keep it hush hush, under the carpet, don't let everyone know. Though everybody already knows it, but you act as if you're not going to tell anyone, like you try your best, I would say. But so...
have you all had any, any stories where you all have met the celebrity couple, but you can't disclose it yet to your team?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. And it was quite funny when, we're like, okay, saying we're not doing Alia Ranveer, and there is media standing down with Interflora t-shirts, and they are actually capturing our boys going in, and then we're like, okay, no t-shirts. So I'm like, you try your best.
I mean, how much can you really keep this under wraps?
Yeah.
On the day of execution, it kind of comes out.
It kind of
But that
comes
wedding
out.
looked so lovely, Anuja.
Yeah, and it was so intimate.
Yeah,
it was
How do you schedule your calendar? How do you make sure you pick up your brides? I mean, is there that it's only them coming to you and saying we want you, or you like to pick up your brides and choose them?
So, I'm a Catholic, so we don't have any dates when we get married, right? But in the Hindu community, there are Muhurat dates. And so I'm like a mini Pandit who knows, and I'm sure you do too.
We keep
because
those
we know
calendars
Muhurat
ready.
dates. So if I get a call and they say 4th, 5th, 6th December, and I'm like, oh, those are peak Muhurat dates. We know our Muhurat dates.
Yeah.
So number one is knowing Muhurat dates is something that I know. And then I know the trend of, calls coming in, at what stage they would come in. So literally all of the Muhurat dates just get booked out, and then there's just no scope. But we have a team. We have a lot of artists in our team. We have makeup and hair artists in our team. And so we do offer, brides, the close family, the core family, the bride's family, as well as the groom's family. So we do a very good package deal and stuff for them.
Lovely.
So that's how we also schedule. But I'm not only a bridal makeup artist. I still do celebrity makeup, and it's been over a decade since I've been doing makeup and hair for Femina Miss India and Miss India Universe. So it's my time that I have to really juggle between all of this.
Brides today, in terms of trials, are they want trials, and I somehow feel it's important to do that. But I also know artists don't prefer to do trials. Is it just because of lack of time, or you feel it's just not needed?
So back in the day when I just started out, I felt that I needed to do trials. And I used to do trials back in the day when I just started. And I must have done about 5 trials in all my life. And, there is a certain time when I am good, I am excellent. I know my skin work. I know my skin works so well.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to nail it.
Yeah.
So again, like I keep saying, and I'm going to always say this, I don't want to just say this about myself, but I know I am going to make a client happy. I know I'm going to nail that skin work. I know she's going to be happy with her makeup, with her hair, with her draping. And hence, when you're doing a trial, the bride comes in, she's wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah.
You don't have the ambience. You don't have your lehenga, you don't have your actual jewelry, You don't have those emotions that you're bringing with on that main day. And the bride comes in and says, okay, can we see something that we're going to do for my mehendi look? And we're trying something out or whatever. And I know, of course, she wants to just say, you have an excellent hair team.
Yeah.
Is your foundation matching and things like that? I know, for sure. But what happens is, I mostly get booked by word of mouth as well. And what's very important is the list of like your clientele for all these years. Who's really booked you? Which families have booked you? What celebrity weddings have you done? So that holds in good stead for me. You know, when I say, and I refuse a trial and I say, I'm so sorry, I won't do a trial, but I will schedule a Zoom meeting with you. I will look at all of your outfits, your mehendi, your sangeet, your wedding, your cocktail party, all of that. I'll take a look at you, your mom, your sister. There may have been calls that I have done for a maximum of 2.5 hours.
Wow.
But just talking about stuff that the bride likes, stuff the bride hates, references that she might have stored, knowing that there's her wedding, leading up to the wedding. Bianca, can we do this? So she sends me references. So we chat about all that. So for me, at this stage, I know that I don't do trials only because of the fact that I know on the main day, I will nail that kind of look. Now, for example, if the bride says, I want a messy braid for my mehendi look, and we're leading up to the messy braid, but we're just doing a beautiful textured curls for the bride. And she looks at me and she says, I love it. Can we just leave it like that?
You're probably making changes on this.
So we're making changes, and there are always changes. We're always discussing something else, which is a great guideline on a call. But on the main day, the ambience, sometimes a bride says, I don't want to tie my hair because she's so tired with her back-to-back events, and she says, can I just have an easy, breezy blowout?
Yeah.
That's what they say because they're so tired.
Yeah.
Or if there was something else planned for her after-party look, she says, can I just tie up my hair in a ponytail? I really want to enjoy myself. And it's about enjoying yourself as well, not only that look, but of course maintaining that look while you're dancing and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of back and forth. We ensure that we are putting a bride in a very comfortable space with her hair, her makeup. And I definitely don't want a bride to feel like, oh my God, I haven't done a trial. What's going to happen and stuff. But the minute they sit in the chair and they have their hair and makeup done, they're like, Bianca, now I'm going to close my eyes and sleep, do whatever you want to do the rest of the events.
So there's so many newcomers today in our industry. It's encouraging to see the new talent that comes in. But they also have a very different approach. Do you recommend that the brides should do their trials with them?
I would actually say yes. Because of the fact that, experience is all. Yes, experience is very important.
True.
And you're actually doing a bride's one and only main important day, and you definitely don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
So if you are a newcomer and a beginner in the industry, I would say, a hair trial is also very important. I'll come to makeup, but hair trial is very important because in our industry, if you say, do you know Hollywood waves?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know Hollywood waves. Do you know beachy waves? They say, yeah, we know. Do you know soft curls, out curls, big glam curls? And, the artist will say, yeah, I know it. But then eventually they use just a similar one size of a tong and everything looks the same.
How
Every single hairstyle.
I didn't even know there were so many types of hair.
There are different types of curls. There are different, there's a classic Hollywood wave and there are beachy waves and, a lot of fashion hairs. There's so many different types of hairstyles. But artists may just say, just to obviously gain a client, they would say, yes, we know of everything. And on the actual day, when the bride says she's an international bride and she comes in from the US and she knows what beachy waves are because these guys know how to do really cool beachy waves. And they're like, these are not beachy waves. And so she's upset on her wedding day for her beach party and she wants a classic Hollywood look because she's got a great Gatsby night and she doesn't get her classic waves, which is one form. So knowing technique takes a while. You may be young, super young and know the technique and that's fantastic. But I would just say as a beginner, for a bride and stuff, she might want to be really confident if she's hiring somebody who's, in her early 20s and stuff or mid 20s, then definitely a
One thing, Ritu, that I've loved about you is when I met you for the first time, your bluntness, the way you say things the way they are, I think that's something I've learned a little bit from you.
Good for you. Can I tell you one thing? I would say it's not about being blunt. I think it's very important to be honest.
True.
And with clients, you know this better than I do. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it's wanting champagne, but want to pay only for beer.
Yeah.
Okay, so that can't go very well together.
Yeah.
And you have to be very honest from day one.
True.
I have to admit I've gotten into a lot of trouble because of my so-called honesty here. But in long term, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining.
I think that goes a long way. Absolutely.
So one of the things in the early days, I will tell you, in about 10-15 years ago, when we started collaborating with other chefs, I realized our team was not very cooperative.
Okay.
They would call the chef, give them the ingredients, and they were left on their own. But when you bring in a chef from outside, in some ways, you are getting someone in your home.
Yeah.
And if you don't give them that sense of comfort of what they would get at being at your home, they will never be able to produce what they should produce.
Yeah.
So this is something again we consciously have worked upon
and
our team has worked upon, that whenever we bring in a chef, we make sure every ingredient that they have asked for is available to them as per their specification.
Yeah.
If something is not available, we talk to them, we discuss it with them, we change the menu according to them. A team is provided to them. So someone who is charge of that team, that in case there's a problem, there's someone they can always call, reach out to. And since we have started doing it, I have noticed such a change because as I said, a Kashmiri may be able to do amazing food in Srinagar, but when he comes here and he finds spinach instead of haq, you know, how can you blame him for not being able to produce what you had done at the tasting?
You're right, and it's an overall experience, you know, because when you have food laid out, the end client who's eating doesn't know, is this made by Ritu's chef and was that an outsourced? So the responsibility pretty much lies on your shoulders.
And also, as you use the very correct word, today food is not about eating.
Yeah.
Today weddings are not about just eating or decor or about entertainment. Any event, not only a wedding, it's about an experience. And that experience can only come if you continue to innovate. You have to continuously innovate, recharge yourself. And when I say innovate, I don't mean go molecular way. I don't mean going, doing food.
Trying to do fusion.
Exactly. That's not. An experience is something that you look and say, wow, this looks a bit different. I want to try it.
Yeah.
Okay. They put it in their mouth. Oh, this tastes amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's an experience.
Yeah.
And if I can't create that experience, the day I can't do it, I'm going to quit this.
And I also think the dynamics in the wedding space is changing. I mean, the large weddings will stay, they will always stay. But younger couples choose to have an intimate setting.
Cleverer people.
They want to have the sit downs. I mean, they want to get the entire culinary experience to be a super highlight in many different ways. So sometimes I wonder, how do you all deal with those pressures? And I know you collaborate and bring in a lot of international talent. How do you search for this, Ritu? How do you, I mean, this whole Italy story, now I can relate to that, you know who to bring in. I remember those old two ladies.
Yes, the grannies who came. One of them doesn't work anymore because she's 97 now. And the other one still comes, but we have to carry a chair with her behind everywhere she goes. No, so I'll tell you what, this is again a constant process. And when we say we have to innovate and find, so you know, if you get a chance later, speak to our little kids here, whether it's Ankur, who's our corporate chef, who really now takes care of catering, or Akshara, whose job is only now menu development, or Avantika, who is calling every chef in the world to check, will you cater for us or not? It is
it's a process.
It's a process. It's a research. Then going, trying it out. So we've done. People who haven't catered ever, I said, don't worry. मैं हूँ ना.
Infrastructure is given.
मैं आपको दे रही हूँ ना सब कुछ. You know. So don't worry. So again, you have to be relevant.
Yes.
You cannot. My knowledge of 2009 is something I cherish, but it can't be 2009 in 2024.
Correct.
It has to, and it has. There's some classics, some jewels you'll always use, but you have to also, don't forget, like you said, the youngsters, they want an experience. The same things happening in the food space.
Yeah.
There's so many amazing, brilliant young chefs.
Talking of beverages, which is something I'd really want to hear from you because you do it with such a great twist and so differently.
Right.
You know, we've seen from cocktails to sugar-free cocktails to today's fresh ingredient cocktails, this whole transition in the beverage scene has been quite amazing.
Right.
And I'd like to hear a little bit of your view. How do you take this forward?
So I think it's absolutely interesting, captivating, and you know, each time the more we are researching, the more we are tasting, the more brave combinations we are bringing together. It is amazing to see how the palette is evolving, and I purely put in context that just after the lockdown, everybody wanted to be a bar person. Everybody wanted to stack their, cabinet, get a bar trolley. I also design a lot of tableware, objects, and everything around the table and entertainment. It was fascinating to see that how the barware category within the entire home section increased completely.
Lovely.
Everybody now knows what a shaker is, what a peg measure is. So I think in terms of the exposure, the accessibility, like gin is like, everybody knows, you know, Goa is a gin spot for India right now with local ingredients. So I think, of course, the social media and other digital things have been important, but I think people are really pushing themselves to try one cocktail or two cocktails and, you know, go away from the idea of straight drinks, even though when we design menus, we make it a point that matrix is divided between straight drinks and, you know, something to try new. I always think of one thing, whether I'm designing a product or cooking or drinking, that there needs to be a surprise element.
Yeah.
I think that is something which you pleasantly just kind of smile sipping through it. So
this surprise is very often for the couple, or you think it's for the guest?
You know, so it's interesting that the projects or the themes that we are working on, I kind of take a very unconventional route where, of course, everybody, does great drinks. They're all well traveled. We do all the tastings, all the conversation in the studio here.
Okay.
Which kind of breaks the idea of that you're sitting in a traditional bar and then, you know, looking at bottles and then, you know, talking things which are very technical. We have a drink, we have a cup of tea, we chat about, and I kind of dig into the idea of how passionate people are about drinking, how did they meet, what was that 1 or 2 or 5 shots that they have, you know, in the past. And then I kind of weave that idea of what they like in terms of their personality.
Yeah.
And then what they really like drinking. It's about those two people celebrating, organizing everything. And I keep telling them, you know, it's great to have a martini for mummy and like Papa is having your whiskey. But what is it that you guys want? Jaeger on a tall glass? Have it. You know, drink it. So
it's how you like it.
It's absolutely how you like it. And, you know, taste is personal and you do, I mean, it's one day, so have fun with it. And we do projects where, I mean, design is important, flowers are important, but bar are very important.
Bars
you know,
are very important.
I mean, it's not just a bar. It's every time, you know.
It's actually, it's pretty much your center spot.
Yeah,
it's the place where, you know, for the larger weddings, which are really large format, I've seen people come, they are grooms, either friends, colleagues, cousins, and the bride side, and if they don't know each other, I think many of them become friends at the bar and go back.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's quite a melting pot.
Yeah, no, totally. And we try a point in terms of collaterals or very soft elements which break the ice, like right from the coaster, the cocktail napkin, which I embroidered, to even the menu, which probably have photographs, or a book, a coffee table book, which has been customized for a cocktail, you know, station, which is not just a book, but they're kind of seeing different things and, you know, talking and I mean, absolutely.
Have you designed anything like a pre-mix, like, you know, you used to get those party mixes that to line your stomach, and
so
I mean, do you
I mean,
or maybe you should do that.
No, we do that. There are many different versions of tonics and edibles that one can take. But I think the basic fundamental is that we keep telling people, please eat and then sip. So a lot of time, in fact, with Ritu again, we've done things where if the theme is Mexican, if you're doing beautiful tacos or a pulled pork or a jackfruit, we pair it with a little paloma next to it. So you're sipping and eating. Nice. So it's kind of a jugalbandi of food and flavors and the idea.
I always like that. I always feel there has to be next to the bar quite a station for nibbles.
Absolutely.
Maybe something you would take a bite size because that keeps you going through the evening.
Absolutely.
And of course, chasing it with water is always a good idea.
Yeah. And of course, we as I said, dancing and having fun is the most important part. Like our focus is at the end of the day that we've done these amazing conceptualized, intellectualized concepts, but the core of it is everybody should have fun, right from the grandmother who probably will have just that one drink. But it's a little vibe that we did a wedding out of India where it was really cute. We did a fountain of gin. You could go and take your glass and go to different fountains and take like an elderflower gin and a herbal or a Malabar gin. And after a while I realized that the bride is obviously getting the mehendi done, the groom is happy. All the family oldies were really drunk, and I was like, okay, we need to figure this out. This is unusual because because they didn't. It was so nice because they were just putting the glass and gulping it and then coming back, and because every corner was a fountain. And then we were like, listen, let's just kind of maybe dilute it a little bit. So those are fun things where you have the other side of people, having fun, and it's just a memory then, which kind of lasts.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun then at the end of the day.
The Hyderabad weddings are also getting really bigger. They
really
were always big, but I think now they've taken on this. There's space also. I think these two cities, Delhi, Hyderabad, are blessed to have space where you can do so much.
So this is very interesting because usually one of the events that we do for let's say a family is very large. And it's very difficult to kind of showcase creativity, and especially cocktails which are so intricate and they take time for 1,200 to 1,500 people. For places like those, we devise mechanisms which are faster. So we do cocktail cabinets where cocktails are already pre-made, almost like a fridge. So they are bottled. So almost like a bottled cocktail. So you pick it up, you kind of serve with clear ice and you kind of go.
Oh, lovely.
We also have slush machines, like imagine tequila kind of coming out where it's self-service. And every time when we are even working with designers where I'm fighting for space that, I need more space. I think that's the biggest fight where...
Designing a bar, I always tell all my, as a planner, my job is pretty much to stitch in the requirements of the beverage team, food team, design team, and I make sure we have a very detailed meeting with the bar team.
It's very important.
First thing I want to ask you is, what is it that couples choose? How do they choose their destination, and how do you ask them to choose it?
So I think it's really important rather than just, looking at destinations. I think first you have to look at yourself. You have to ask yourself what are the things you all are passionate about as a couple. What are some special memories you want to make together? Is there any location that you all have always dreamed of visiting together? That should be the first question you ask yourself. The second question also you need to ask is about seasonality and when you're traveling.
Yeah.
Because obviously honeymoon dates are going to be determined by the wedding dates.
Correct, which is typically, at least in India, it is between, November to February, March.
Typically.
And then again in the summer.
Correct.
Yeah.
Typically, it would be a winter wedding usually we see more of. So that sort of limits the choice a bit because obviously you can't go to a place like Santorini or the south of France in Feb or March. It's going to be too cold. It's not going to be enjoyable. So looking at the when is also important. And lastly, it's also important to consider logistics because a lot of our bucket list honeymoon destinations are very challenging to reach. Like Bora Bora, for example, needs 4 flights to get there.
Oh wow!
It's a minimum of 4 flights.
And there will be some couples who yet do that.
Yeah, I mean there are. We've done a lot of amazing honeymoons in French Polynesia. It's one of the places I would like to go to for my honeymoon.
Lovely.
But it's logistically challenging, so you need to make sure you have that amount of time and that amount of will to get there. It's not going to be easy. So if you want something easy, it might not be for you. So I think asking these questions first is very important. So to make sure you have a destination that you're going to love and a destination you're going to enjoy with all the logistics.
So before you start this with a couple, do you have like a questionnaire, or do you go through like certain guidelines with them before you, because you see this discussion, just like how when I do wedding planning,
correct,
and if the family hasn't decided on the destination, we could probably over 3-4 hours do a world tour. You know, I mean, it goes around. So, you know, is there, like, I like to filter them into, you know, starting with certain questions that work and kind of start eliminating the destinations that don't work. So likewise, how do you take that process? Is there a guideline that you
I think the first thing we look at, obviously we go through the same set of questions and we filter it a lot based on the logistics and the feasibility of things.
Yes.
And then obviously it is an iterative process. We do go through many, like you said, we end up doing a bit of a world tour. And like, luckily by now we have a huge bank of itineraries built up. So it's very easy for us to share with clients what a sample of their trip might look like.
Yeah.
So, you know, once they get a bit of a sample, it's easier for them to decide, is this for us or not? So we sit with them, we show them various itineraries, we discuss many destinations with them. I think a patient travel advisor is a must at this point, because otherwise you can go down a rabbit hole of discovering different places, and it does take time. It's something that it's worth taking time at this stage of the trip to make sure you get something that's going to work.
And I think today couples probably come a little more prepared also. They kind of, at least they have that clarity of, you know, they're not coming to you and saying, tell me where should I go. I mean, they probably have a 2-3 destinations shortlisted and they'll probably want to brainstorm that.
I mean, I typically get 2 types of requests. One is where people are sure that they come to me, Keshav, we want to go to New Zealand, can you help us arrange it? And then obviously that's easy for us to do.
Yeah.
The second are people who have too many options and they're confused.
Yeah.
I don't think people come to us clueless anymore about what to do. There are people who are confused because they have too many things that they want to do. So that's when it becomes a little bit harder, because they want to do everything, but obviously you have to narrow it down. And then we go through various things, and sometimes we even look at, you know, what's available, because if it's last minute and they want to, like, for example, New Zealand, if you're planning it anytime within 3 months of departure, it's going to be very difficult to get the lodges. So we even take that into account while we're planning a trip.
Quite a trend now.
Correct.
To do this little short trip immediately after the wedding.
Correct.
And then save a bigger honeymoon for maybe a few months later.
Correct. So I think we see this a lot when people have like a particular destination they've always want to do. For example, Italy is very popular for honeymoons now, but Italy, as you know, best to do it in the summers or at least the spring.
Yeah.
Whereas most Indian weddings will happen in the winter.
Correct.
So we have a lot of clients who come to us, they're like, okay, Keshav, you know what, we want to do Italy in May, but we just got married, we want to do something. So that's when you look for these smaller destinations. I think that's why the Maldives is very popular, obviously, because it's a quick, easy flight, very, very like luxurious hotels, very romantic. But even, you know, the Middle East, there's some beautiful beach properties in the Middle East. You have, you know, some which are completely off the grid, very beautiful. Nepal and Bhutan, again, come into play for trips like this, where people have like 5 or 6 days to get out. They want to do something which is luxurious, which is relaxing after a very busy wedding. And they want to do a main honeymoon later on.